Ever get that feeling that, global events are like dominoes? Something happens way over there and suddenly it could tip things over right here in Malaysia.
Absolutely. We're seeing these rapid shifts, especially in tech and policy.
And the big question is, how do they all connect? What's the real impact on us?
Yeah, let's dive into that because we've got a couple of, really interesting developments happening in Malaysia's tech scene.
Developments that might be more linked than they look at first glance.
Exactly. We're going to do a deep dive into two key things from recent reports. First up, potential changes in how the U.S. regulates AI chip exports.
Okay. And second,
The launch, just recently, of Malaysia's Blockchain Infrastructure, MBI.
MBI, right. So the plan is to unpack these, see how they might influence each other, and what it all means for Malaysia's tech future.
Precisely. We want to give you the key info, maybe highlight some surprising angles, and connect those dots so you get a clear picture of what's actually going on and, importantly, why it matters.
Okay, great. Let's tackle the AI chip situation first then. There was a Reuters report, April 30th, U.S. time, right?
That's the one. It suggests the U.S. might be rethinking those AI chip export restrictions they announced back in January 2025.
Right, January 13th. That's when the Biden administration rolled out that three-tiered system for access to advanced AI chips.
Yeah, and Malaysia, along with most of Southeast Asia, but not Singapore.
We ended up in Tier 2, limited access.
Limited access. China, Tier 3, a complete ban. So that was the setup.
So what's the potential change mentioned in the Reuters report?
Well, it indicates the Trump administration might be thinking about modifying that. Maybe even replacing the whole tiered system.
Replacing it with what?
With government-to-government agreements, individual deals.
Ah, okay. So moving away from broad rules to more direct country-specific negotiations.
Potentially, yes. It could be a really significant strategic shift.
What would be the reason for that? Why make that change?
Seems like a couple things. First, it gives the U.S. more, leverage in trade talks.
Makes sense. Used chip access as a bargaining chip, literally.
Exactly. And second, there's talk of maybe implementing stricter licensing standards overall, but perhaps with lower thresholds for scrutinizing orders. So, tighter controls maybe, but applied differently.
That definitely throws a wrench into things, especially the timing.
Yeah.
This news came out just, 15 days before the current rules were supposed to fully kick in, May 15th.
Right. Talk about uncertainty. Not much lead time for businesses.
Not at all. And connecting this to the bigger picture, Malaysia is actually in trade negotiations with the U.S. right now, isn't it?
It is. The third Asian country, actually, after Japan and Vietnam, which kind of highlights Malaysia's strategic importance to the U.S., you could argue.
And didn't Malaysia appoint a deputy minister specifically for the second phase of these talks, taking over from Tengku Zafrul?
They did. It signals they're taking it very seriously.
Okay, so given this potential policy shift in the U.S., what could this mean for, say, Malaysia's data center industry? That was a big point of discussion earlier.
Well, it's a bit of a what-if scenario right now. If the U.S. did loosen restrictions, make things more favorable, that could definitely boost investor confidence again in those Malaysian data center stocks.
Yeah.
The ones that took a hit back in January.
Because the big worry was whether they'd get enough of those high-end AI chips.
Right. Without a reliable supply, their growth potential seemed capped.
We saw that impact pretty clearly. I remember seeing analysis on the Hey I Cheerio YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah.
Point out how Sway Construction, SC, their stock dropped quite a bit because, over half their projects were data centers.
Right. And it wasn't just them. Southern Cable, the cable manufacturer.
The high voltage ones.
And NationGate, the AI server assembler. They even got caught up in those chip smuggling whispers out of Singapore, didn't they? Because they managed to get hold of high-end NVIDIA chips somehow.
Yeah, that raised some eyebrows. So the initial restrictions definitely had a real tangible effect.
No doubt. And remember, that's 7% allocation limit. U.S. tech giants could only put 7% of their AI compute power outside Level 1 countries.
Which excluded Singapore, but included Malaysia.
Correct. So investors were naturally worried about the long-term growth prospects for data centers here if the big U.S. players couldn't scale up their operations freely.
So the million-dollar question now is, could this potential policy shift actually lead to better conditions for Malaysia's data centers? Could we see those rules relaxed?
Maybe. Perhaps influencing the number of GPUs allocated here, that 50,000 figure that was floating around.
Could that change? Yeah, it really feels like we're just waiting to see which way the wind blows on this one.
It does. Okay, so let's shift gears now. Let's talk about the second big development.
Right, the Malaysia Blockchain Infrastructure, MBI.
Yep. Officially launched, it was a joint announcement, MYEG and MIMOS, on April 29th, 2025.
MBI. Yes. We probably need to address the elephant in the room for Malaysian listeners.
The acronym.
The acronym. Yeah. MBI has some, let's say, unfortunate historical baggage here.
True. Very true.
So just to be crystal clear for everyone listening, in this context, MBI stands for Malaysia Blockchain Infrastructure.
Good clarification. That's important. But yeah, looking past the name, the launch itself is actually a pretty significant step for blockchain development and use in Malaysia.
Definitely. For listeners who might not know, can you give a quick reminder about MIMOS?
Sure. MIMOS is the Malaysian Microelectronics Systems Research Institute. It's a strategic government agency, operates under MOSTI, the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation.
And they focus on R&D.
Exactly. Across a whole range of tech fields, they're a key player.
And they've worked closely with MYEG for a while, haven't they?
They have a long-standing partnership.
And MYEG itself. Interesting timing. They announced a name change to Zetrix on the same day as the MBI launch.
Which really seems to signal that strategic pivot we mentioned, right? Moving more firmly from e-government services towards blockchain.
It certainly looks that way.
Yeah.
So tell us about the tech behind MBI. What's it built on?
Okay, so MBI is built upon the Zetrix platform. Now, MYEG, or Zetrix now, I guess holds a 56% stake in that platform.
Only 56%.
Yeah, it was developed collaboratively with a Chinese company, Zhongzi, and also Xinhua Wang. So it's important to note it's not a 100% Malaysian-owned platform.
That's a key detail. Okay. So with MBI now launched, what are the kinds of practical applications we might start seeing? How could blockchain be used here through this infrastructure?
Well, one of the biggest areas potentially is digital identity, specifically the My Digital ID initiative.
Ah, yes, My Digital ID.
There's a real ambition there. It's being developed by MIMOS using ZRX's encryption tech, and the idea is to turn it into a kind of super app.
Like Grab, you mean?
Sort of, yeah. Imagine integrating your e-wallet, using it as the main way to authenticate yourself for government services, GLC services, basically reducing the need for physical checks and documents.
So like a central digital key.
Pretty much. We even saw news back in late January 27th, talking about the potential launch of this My Digital ID super app.
That would certainly make life easier for a lot of official interactions. What else?
Another really big one, especially now, is supply chain traceability.
Okay. How does blockchain help there?
Because it creates this unchangeable, transparent record. You can use it to genuinely verify where products come from.
Which could be crucial with all the global trade stuff going on, the whole trade war 2.0 discussion.
Exactly. Preventing people from just saying something came from Malaysia when it didn't, to get around trade rules. MBI could provide that verifiable proof of origin.
That makes a lot of sense strategically. Any other areas?
Well, identity management generally tied into My Digital ID. Proof of origin, which, as I said, ZRX can already handle. And then there's asset tokenization.
Tokenization. Explain that a bit.
It's basically representing real-world things or digital things as unique tokens on the blockchain. Think artwork, music rights, maybe even digital stuff like, I don't know, YouTube videos.
Seriously, so you could own a fraction of a painting or a share of song royalties recorded on the blockchain.
That's the idea. It's still early days for this in Malaysia, but the potential is huge for changing how we think about owning assets.
Wow. Okay. What else is on the list?
Then you have DeFi, decentralized finance.
Right. DeFi. How would you explain that simply?
Think of it as something that could really shake up traditional banking, like Ant Group did in China to an extent.
How so?
Imagine getting, say, microloans based on your buying history on Grab or Lazada or Shopee. The data proves you're a reliable customer.
So using platform data for credit scoring outside of banks.
Or providing financing within a supply chain, again, based on verified blockchain data about orders and deliveries, It opens up new ways to access finance.
Very interesting. Any other capabilities?
One more key thing is interoperability, the potential for MBI to connect smoothly with other public blockchains.
Like Ethereum, for instance.
Like Ethereum, yeah. Now, this opens doors down the line for possibilities like, maybe, direct exchange between Malaysian digital assets and foreign ones, though obviously that's sensitive territory since we don't have an official central bank digital currency yet.
Right, got to be careful there. Okay, so let's try and connect these dots. We've got this AI chip uncertainty hanging over us.
Yep, potential access issues.
And then, boom, the launch of Malaysia's own national blockchain infrastructure, MBI. How do these two seemingly separate things actually relate or influence each other?
Well, think about it this way. If accessing those top-tier AI chips does become more difficult or uncertain,
Yeah.
that could actually push Malaysia to double down on developing its own digital strengths, using MBI as a core piece of that.
So the restriction could actually be a catalyst.
It could. It's about building resilience, finding other ways to grow the digital economy if one key input, like advanced chips, becomes harder to get. Maybe Malaysia focuses on areas where blockchain offers an edge, like super secure data management, perhaps, even for AI, securing the data going into the models.
Ah, interesting. So even if the raw processing power is constrained, MBI could help build strengths in secure data handling, new digital services, that sort of thing.
Exactly. MBI could help mitigate the downside risk from chip restrictions by really driving innovation in other areas. Digital ID, secure transactions, efficient services, fintech.
Let's revisit those near-term applications. You mentioned verifiability, accessibility. Give us another concrete example of how MBI could change things day to day.
Okay, think about renewing your vehicle license, your ROTX, and paying your road tax with JPJ.
Ugh, yes. Always a fun process.
Imagine doing both seamlessly through that My Digital ID super app we talked about.
All in one place.
All in one place. Your identity verified securely by MBI, payment processed, records updated instantly on the blockchain, no queues, no different websites or apps, maybe even roadside checks become digital scans.
Okay, that level of integration would be a game changer for convenience and efficiency.
Right, so the launch of MBI isn't just a tech announcement. It could genuinely be the foundation stone that accelerates development across Malaysia's entire digital economy, making it much richer, more connected.
It really underscores why people involved in Malaysian business or anyone just interested in the country's future needs to keep watching both these spaces, the AI chip regulations from the US and how MBI gets rolled out and adopted here.
Absolutely. They're not happening in isolation. They could really shape each other and Malaysia's digital path forward in some quite profound ways.
Okay, so let's try and summarize. We're looking at a potentially pivotal moment for Malaysia's tech scene,
Definitely. You've got this cloud of uncertainty around AI chip supply.
which could pose real challenges.
But at the very same time, you have this exciting, potentially transformative launch of a national blockchain infrastructure with MBI.
And the key takeaway is really the interplay between them, isn't it?
Exactly. How challenges in one area might actually spur innovation and growth in another. We could see some unexpected results.
It really makes you think. As Malaysia tries to navigate these tricky global tech policies, while also laying down its own digital foundations, like MBI, what happens next? What surprising opportunities might pop up? Or maybe new challenges we haven't even considered?
And ultimately, how will all this filter down? How will it affect your daily life, your interactions, and the wider Malaysian economy over the next few years?
Definitely something to keep a close eye on. Lots to think about there.